when life breaks your heart, the superpower of resilience. Have you ever had that moment when the world stops spinning? When everything you thought was solid suddenly crumbles beneath your feet? That instant when your heart doesn't just break, it shatters into pieces so small, you wonder if you'll ever find them all again. I recently had the profound privilege of interviewing Afiya Turner, whose revolutionary insights on resilience have fundamentally transformed how I understand human capacity in the face of devastating loss. Her wisdom, born from both personal tragedy and professional triumph, forms the bedrock of what I'm sharing today. Afia isn't just a thought leader, she's a beacon for thousands navigating their darkest moments, offering not just platitudes, but practical pathways through pain. Her work has quite literally saved lives by showing people that their story doesn't end at their lowest point. The phone rings at 2 a.m. The doctor delivers news you weren't prepared to hear. The email arrives with the words, "We regret to inform you." The conversation begins with, "We need to talk." In these moments, we face a choice that defines everything that follows. Not the choice of whether to feel pain, that's inevitable, isn't it? But the choice of what to do with that pain once it arrives. And let's be honest, that choice rarely feels like a choice at all when you're in the thick of it. Some of the most extraordinary people I've encountered didn't start out extraordinary. They became that way because life handed them circumstances that demanded transformation. They discovered, as Afiya Turner so eloquently shared, that resilience isn't just a nice quality to have, it's a superpower that emerges precisely when we need it most. Consider Bozoma St. John. In 2013, while rising through the ranks at major tech companies, Bozoma faced the unimaginable. Her husband, Peter, was diagnosed with cancer. As she balanced caring for him, raising their young daughter, and managing high pressure roles, she watched the love of her life slip away. Imagine that. Imagine standing at the pinnacle of professional achievement while simultaneously experiencing the deepest personal loss. Imagine the cognitive dissonance of receiving career accolades while planning a funeral. Imagine having to explain to your child why daddy isn't coming home, then putting on makeup and heading into a boardroom as if your world hasn't just imploded. What did Bazoma do? She leaned into vulnerability when everything in corporate America tells women, especially Black women, to hide their emotions. She shared her grief journey publicly in an industry that worships strength and abhors weakness. She transformed her pain into purpose by mentoring others facing similar hardships, creating a ripple effect of healing that continues to this day. This wasn't just admirable, it was revolutionary. As an immigrant from Ghana who had already faced both racial bias and gender discrimination throughout her career, Bazoma's resilience had been tested repeatedly. The loss of her husband could have been the final straw. Instead, it became the catalyst for her most meaningful work. Today, Bazoma St. John is recognized as one of Forbes' world's most influential CMOs, having served as chief marketing officer at Netflix. She authored The Urgent Life, detailing how tragedy fueled transformation. She created scholarships for Black women in tech. She didn't just survive her loss, she used it to create ripples of positive change that continue to expand outward. As Afia Turner emphasized in our interview, your journey may be shaped by loss or setbacks, but your response defines your future. This isn't just inspirational fluff. This is the reality of how resilience works. But let's be honest. When we're in the depths of grief or disappointment, the last thing we want to hear is some perky motivational speaker telling us to just be resilient. as if it were that simple, as if we could just flip a switch and suddenly transform our pain into productivity, as if the depth of our suffering could be overcome with a cute Instagram quote and a good night's sleep. Real resilience isn't about denying pain. It's not about good vibes only or toxic positivity. It's about acknowledging the pain, sitting with it, and then when you're ready, not when someone else tells you you should be, finding a way to carry it forward without letting it define your entire existence. Filmmaker Ava DuVernay understands this intimately. After losing her father, Joe DuVernay Sr., Ava faced the dual challenge of processing her grief while breaking barriers in an industry notorious for excluding women of color from positions of power. Hollywood isn't exactly known for its compassionate approach to personal crises. The industry doesn't pause production because you're grieving. The opportunities don't wait until you've processed your loss. The competition doesn't ease up because your heart is broken. The deadlines don't extend because you spent the night crying instead of writing. Yet Ava found a way to honor her father's memory by weaving themes of legacy, family strength, and community upliftment into films like Selma and 13. She became the first Black woman nominated for a Best Director Golden Globe and the first Black female director nominated for a Best Picture Oscar. What's particularly remarkable about Ava's story is that she didn't compartmentalize her grief and her work. She didn't put her pain in a box while she pursued her career. She integrated them. She allowed her loss to inform her art, to deepen her storytelling, to fuel her advocacy for others. The very thing that could have derailed her became the engine driving her forward. Raised in Compton by parents who instilled pride despite systemic obstacles, losing her father intensified Ava's resolve not only to succeed, but also to open doors for others facing adversity due to race or circumstance. Through her Array Alliance, she supports filmmakers of color and women directors, ensuring that stories like hers, stories of loss, resilience, and triumph, have a platform. As Afiya Turner pointed out in our conversation, resilience isn't just about bouncing back. Sometimes it's about bouncing forward into a new version of yourself that wouldn't have existed without the challenge that forced your evolution. Now, I want to be clear about something. Celebrating resilience doesn't mean glorifying suffering. It doesn't mean we should seek out hardship or minimize its impact. Pain is real, loss is devastating, trauma leaves scars, and not all pain can or should be transformed into some grand purpose. But what if we could see our capacity to endure as evidence of our strength rather than our victimhood? What if we could recognize that the very experiences that break us open also create space for new growth? Robert F. Smith, now recognized as the wealthiest Black man in America, credits overcoming early losses, including his close relationships with father figures, as central motivation behind his business success and philanthropy. Growing up facing racial barriers and emotional challenges tied to familial losses, he focused on building networks of mentors who could fill the paternal gaps in his life. Later, he paid this forward through transformative acts like paying off the student debt of an entire graduating class at Morehouse College, a $34 million gift that sparked national conversation around generational wealth building and resilience strategies within marginalized communities. Smith didn't just achieve success despite his losses, he achieved it because those losses shaped his understanding of what truly matters. They gave him perspective that money alone couldn't buy. They instilled in him a commitment to creating opportunity for others that might never have existed had his own path been easier. What's fascinating about Smith's story is how he transformed absence into presence. The very gaps in his life became the blueprint for how he would later create opportunity for others. This is what Afiya Turner meant when she said that building a support network and seeking mentorship can help you rise above even the toughest moments. But let's talk about the reality of resilience because it's not a straight line. It's not a neat three-step process that you complete and then move on. It's messy. It's inconsistent. Some days you feel like you're conquering the world, and other days you can barely get out of bed, and that's okay. The problem isn't that we struggle, the problem is that we think we shouldn't struggle. We've internalized this idea that resilience means never showing weakness, never admitting defeat, never asking for help. But that's not resilience, that's denial. And denial is exhausting. True resilience includes the vulnerability to say, I'm not okay right now and I need support. It includes the wisdom to recognize when you need to rest rather than push through. It includes the courage to ask for help when your own resources are depleted. This is what Bozoma St. John modeled when she publicly shared her grief journey. This is what Ava DuVernay demonstrated when she channeled her pain into art that connected with others experiencing similar losses. This is what Robert F. Smith embodied when he sought out mentors to fill the gaps in his life. They didn't pretend to be invulnerable. They acknowledged their wounds and then figured out how to live meaningfully despite them, or perhaps even because of them. So I ask you today, what pain are you carrying? What loss has shaped you? What setback feels like it might define your future? Now, I ask you, what if that very pain could become your greatest source of power? What if that loss could connect you to your deepest purpose? What if that setback is actually the setup for your most meaningful contribution? I challenge you right here, right now, to reframe your relationship with resilience. Stop thinking of it as something you either have or don't have. Start seeing it as a muscle that grows stronger each time you choose to take one more step forward when everything in you wants to give up. Identify just one area where you've held back out of fear or pain. Choose one brave step, just one, that you can take this week toward reclaiming your dream or goal. Not the whole journey, not the entire mountain, just the next step that's actually within your reach. Because here's what I know for sure, what Afiya Turner's wisdom and these remarkable stories confirm: your capacity for resilience is greater than whatever is trying to break you. Your future is not determined by what has happened to you, but by how you choose to respond. Your pain can become a portal to purpose if you're brave enough to walk through it. When life breaks your heart, and it will because that's part of being human, remember that breaking isn't the end of your story. It's just the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where you discover that resilience isn't just something you have, it's something you become. And in becoming resilient, you don't just save yourself, you light the way for others, still finding their path through darkness. You become living proof that even our deepest wounds can become our greatest gifts to the world. The question isn't whether life will break your heart. The question is, what will you build from the pieces?